Actually, this is a wonderful moment for us. It's the completion, in many ways, of 2 years of work. And as Alan Murray noted at the beginning, this survey was a massive, just a massive undertaking. We completed more than 70,000 screening interviews. The calls were made by random digit dial on cell phones and landlines in Russian and in English in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. The survey was in the field for 4 months under the watchful eye of my colleague Greg Smith at the Pew Research Center and of Ben, who is here, Ben Phillips from APT-SRBI. Ben, just raise your hand or stand. APT-SRBI did a wonderful job administering this survey. Thank you, Ben. On the basis of the screening interviews, we conducted longer interviews averaging 25 minutes. With more than 5,000 eligible respondents. All of those people could be, in some way or another, considered Jewish. For analytical purposes, for our study, we classify 3,500 of them, approximately, as Jewish. Now, step back for a moment. One reason why a survey like this is necessary and is important is that the U.S. Census Bureau does not collect information on the religion of individual Americans. In fact, the one and only time when the Census Bureau has done that was 56 years ago in 1957, when in a current population survey, the Census Bureau asked individual Americans about their religious affiliation. At that time, 3.2% of Americans over the age of 14, the equivalent in 1957 of 3.9 million people, identified their religion as Jewish, what we would, in our survey, call Jews by religion. Now, over the past half century, the number of Jews by religion in America almost certainly has risen. By our estimates and by Len Sachs' estimates at Brandeis, we're on the same page on this. Approximately today, 5.3 million adults identify as Jewish in one way or another. 4.2 million approximately of those are Jews by religion. That's about a 15% increase since 1957. But while Jews by religion have increased 15% since 1957, the U.S. population as a whole has more than doubled, with the result that the percentage of the American public that identifies as Jewish by religion has declined over the past 50 to 60 years. Today, by our estimates, also by Len's estimates, about 1.8%, just under 2% of the U.S. public identifies as Jewish by religion. But at the same time, while that group has been declining in percentage terms, though rising in absolute terms, it appears that there has been a marked increase in people who describe themselves religiously as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular. So when we ask someone in a survey, what's your religion? They don't answer Jewish. They say they're atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular. The biggest subgroup is the nothing in particulars. When we ask a second screening question, aside from religion, do you consider yourself Jewish or partially Jewish? They say yes. And when we ask a third screening question, did you have a Jewish parent or were you raised Jewish? They say yes. These are what we call Jews of no religion. It's a clunky term. Many of you are more familiar with the term secular Jews, cultural Jews. The clunky term Jews of no religion is very precise. Again, it's people who do not say their religion is Jewish, but do feel Jewish in some way and do have direct Jewish ancestry. And that group has been growing so. By our survey's findings, fully 1 in 5 of all Jews in America today are Jews of no religion. And I want you to look at what's happened generationally. And I know these numbers are small. You also have it in the overview that's in front of you. What you have in front of you, by the way, is just the overview of our report. The full report, we were afraid if you dropped it on your feet, you might have to be taken to the hospital. It's more than 200 pages thick. So we, for safety reasons, gave you only a thin version here today. But I want you to see that in the greatest generation, my father's generation, 93% of Jews in that generation, when asked what's their religion, say Jewish. Only 7% say that they don't have a religion or that they're atheist or agnostic or nothing in particular. In the millennial generation of Jews born since 1980, fully a third, 32%, say they have no religion. Yet again, these are people who identify as Jewish, they feel Jewish, and we know from a lot of things in our survey that they feel Jewish in some ways fairly strongly. They say they're proud to be Jewish, they say they feel a strong sense of belonging to the Jewish people. Now, in addition, Jews of no religion clearly, I think, are accepted as part of the Jewish community. There's a long tradition in this, many of you know, going all the way back to the Sanhedrin. It's not necessary to be a believer in every respect to be a Jew. And most Jews, even most Jews by religion, say, in answer to a question in our survey, that being Jewish is mainly a matter of ancestry and or culture. Only 15% of Jews overall, and only 17% even of people who identify their religion as Jewish, say that being Jewish is mostly a matter of religion. By the way, in the media coverage today, which you've seen in all the papers, this seemed to be the number one, this is what most reporters led with. Now, there is something important though. Jews of no religion are, on the whole, less religiously observant than Jews by religion. I think there's no surprise there. They are also less engaged with Jewish organizations. They're less likely to give money to Jewish causes. They're less likely to belong to synagogues. They're less likely to belong to other Jewish organizations. Most importantly, in many respects, especially for those who are concerned with Jewish continuity, they are raising their children differently than Jews by religion. Look at the, let's see, I've got a pointer here. I believe this is good. Oops, all right, that didn't work. Oh, there we go, okay. Here's my point, here's my laser pointer. Okay, Jews by religion. 71% of them are raising their children Jewish by religion. Another 15% are raising their children partly Jewish by religion. And another 7% are raising their children in some kind of mixture. Altogether, more than 90% of Jews by religion are raising their children Jewish in at least some way. Jews of no religion. 8% are raising their children Jewish by religion. Fully 2/3 are not raising their children Jewish in any way. Not only not by religion, not partly by religion, and not aside from religion. 2/3 tell us they are raising their children not Jewish in any way. Now, intermarriage is clearly a related phenomenon here. Jews of no religion are more likely to be intermarried. And among Jews who have a Jewish spouse, fully 96% say they're raising their children Jewish by religion. Now, the intermarriage number is very important. You need to see both sides of the coin here, and I don't want to be accused of not showing both sides of the coin here. If you add these numbers up for those in intermarriages, more than 60%, so more than half of Jews in our sample with non-Jewish spouses say they are raising their children Jewish in some way. So of intermarried Jews in our sample who have children in the home, more than half are raising their children Jewish in some way. But fully a third, actually more than a third, are not raising their children Jewish at all. Compare that to those who are unmarried. It's, again, these are very stark differences. Okay? Let's look at intermarriage over time. Our survey is a snapshot in time and very difficult to compare with previous surveys because of methodological reasons. So I'm going to focus on the internal data in our survey. Among respondents to our survey who were married before 1970, 17% have non-Jewish spouses. Among those who got married in the 80s, 40%, approximately 4 in 10, have non-Jewish spouses. In the most recent cohort, 58% have non-Jewish spouses. Now again, you can look at these data also, two sides of the coin. Since about the mid-1990s, and certainly since 2000, this is held fairly stable. So it's possible, at least, that the intermarriage rate in our data is leveling off. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying it's possible that it is. Given the overall trend, there have been clearly some periods in the past where it may have leveled off for a while and then continued to go up. So I don't know what's for sure. And Stephen, by the way, Stephen Cohen, helped us find a particularly interesting statistic just yesterday. If you separate out the Orthodox, in the most recent group since 2005, more than 2/3 are intermarried of those who are not Orthodox Jews. Now let's look at denominations. This pie chart should not surprise you at all because it's really very similar to what we've thought in the past. As Reform is today the largest single stream within Judaism, followed by conservatism, and followed by Orthodox. Orthodox make up about 10% of the Jewish population. And that's interesting because it isn't so different from what we've thought it was in the past. And purely on demographic basis, the Orthodox should be growing. We know that the Orthodox have younger median age, and they have almost, on average, twice as many children per adult as Jews overall. So the Orthodox should be growing. But there's been one major check on Orthodox growth, and that's been what we call, using a term we use generically for all the other religious groups, denominational switching. And I'm going to show you a series of 3 slides here for each of the major denominations within, or streams, if you will, or movements within Judaism. So among those who are raised Jewish and were raised Orthodox, today only half are still Orthodox. Fully half of the people in our sample who were raised Orthodox are no longer Orthodox. So state the obvious, they could be doubling for demographic reasons, but if half are leaving, overall stability. Now, some are moving into conservatism and reform, and one of the newspaper accounts today said that 20% of the Orthodox had left Judaism altogether. I don't know where that came from. That was a complete error. About 6%, a relatively small number, have left Judaism entirely. Most Orthodox who are switching are staying Jews by religion, but fully a quarter have moved into conservatism and reform. Now let's look at the conservative movement. Among those raised conservative in our sample, today only 36% are still conservative. That's even a lower retention rate than the Orthodox. And a big chunk of them have moved into reform, 30%. A very small number have moved up the ladder of traditionalism into Orthodox, but a great many have moved down. A few are leaving Judaism entirely, okay? And some are becoming Jews of no religion. And finally, we'll look at reform. And actually online, we have an expanded version of this where you can even look at Jews of no denomination. You can see the patterns in all directions. But the point I want you to see is that most of the denominational switching that's going on is in the direction of less traditional Judaism, from orthodoxy to conservatism, from conservatism to reform, and from reform into Jews of no religion, and even into non-Jewish. So the retention rate of reform is a little bit higher. Some of my reform friends seem to be quelling over 55%. I don't know whether it's anything to quell over, but that's what it is. It's a little bit higher than some of the other denominations. What do you think, Stephen?
Quell or kvetch? That's the question before.
To quell or to kvetch? That is the question. Now let's just see here, my next slide. Okay. So the focus of this survey in many respects is really Jewish identity. What does it mean to be a Jewish? What are the various ways in which people identify as Jewish? And Jeanette was very taken with this, given her family's involvement with the Holocaust Museum. And Stephen, you said the Holocaust in the 1950s was close. I'm sorry, Scott, you said the Holocaust in the 1950s was close. It's still close. More Jews say, when we ask them, what is essential to what it means to be Jewish to you? What do you think is important but not essential? And what is not important? And the number one answer that Jews overall give us, and that both Jews by religion and Jews of no religion, the number one answer that all the categories give is remembering the Holocaust. followed very closely by leading an ethical and moral life. Now you'll notice a couple interesting things here. One is that for most Jews, or more Jews, having a good sense of humor is important by more important by a margin of more than 2 to 1 than observing Jewish law. You also notice one other thing here that's interesting, which is that while the numbers are different, the rank order that Jews by religion and Jews of no religion, which they rank these 9 things that we ask about, is largely the same with one exception, and that is that Jews of no religion say that caring about Israel is less important to them, or less of them say that caring about Israel is essential to them. Jews of no religion also are a little bit younger in median age by Jews by religion, and I want to show you an important pattern in this question by age. And the pattern is that the various age groups also largely rank these items in the same rank order, but younger Jews are less likely than older Jews by a margin of 14 points to say that caring about Israel is essential to them. And we see that pattern on a number of questions in the survey. For example, we have a question about U.S. policy toward Israel. And one of the response options is to say that U.S. policy is too supportive of Israel. Other response options, too supportive, not supportive enough, about right. 6% of Jews over the age of 50 say the United States is too supportive of Israel. Among Jews between the ages of 18 and 29, it's fully 25%. So there are some very interesting differences in attitudes toward Israel between older Jews and younger Jews, which raises the natural question of whether the younger Jews are going to become more attached to Israel as they grow, or whether the U.S. Jewish population is going to become less attached to Israel over time. One last quick observation. We've seen in broad terms that the Orthodox population ought to be growing. And I showed you that one check on the growth of the Orthodox population has been a low retention rate. When we look at that generationally, we see something very interesting. And Jack Wertheimer has pointed this out to us. Younger Orthodox Jews are staying Orthodox in greater numbers than older Orthodox Jews did. This could just be a matter of, over time, more people leave Orthodoxy over the course of the life cycle. But Jack and others have said, no, that's not what's really going on. What's really going on is there was a shift. And people who came of age in the 50s and 60s and 70s left Orthodoxy in droves. Those who've come of age in the 80s and 90s and aughts are staying Orthodox in greater numbers. If that's true, then as Stephen has found already in New York, the Orthodox segment of the Jewish population will indeed grow. What you see here writ large is the Orthodox segment of the population has the potential to grow. The secular portion of the population is clearly growing. The middle of the traditional middle of American Judaism, the conservative movement, is under pressure. And one thing we've talked a lot about at the Pew Research Center is polarization in many aspects of American life. So I'll just leave you with the question: polarization. Is it happening? Is that what's happening in the Jewish community? Possibly. That's it. Thank you.